Good morning and afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar from the Nature Positive University's team. My name is Henry Grubb and I will be your host today. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and we have live interpretation into English, French and Spanish provided by our fantastic interpreters from Eco-Interpreters. Please choose whether you would like English, French, or Spanish live translation by clicking on the globe icon in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen in Zoom and selecting your language. If you don't do this, you will not hear the language that you need. The audio will also be available on the YouTube recording. If you only speak English, then you will have to select English because today's speakers will be speaking in French. So please select the English option so that you can hear the live English interpretation. Today's webinar is all about managing our campuses for biodiversity. And for the first time, as I said, our speakers will be presenting in French, which we are very excited about. NPU started in 2021 as a collaboration between researchers at the University of Oxford and the UN Environment Programme to try and form a race to net zero style movement, but for the higher education sector's biodiversity impact, supported by the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. We have a 4-step pledge that commits our members to calculate their baseline impacts, set measurable targets, undertake specific actions using our refrain, reduce, restore and renew framework, and finally publicly report progress. We're delighted that so far 188 institutions have made a nature positive pledge, and we warmly welcome more institutions to pledge too. Since launching in 2022 at COP15 in Montreal, the Nature Positive University's community has grown to over 1,800 people from over 700 higher education institutions in over 100 countries. We also have a student ambassador program, which continues to develop and grow since it was first launched. This year, we welcomed over 1,000 students from 60 countries who have joined monthly Green Skills workshops on a variety of biodiversity topics. Sign-ups for next year's program are due to open in August, and we'll be sharing further details in an email to our mailing list soon and on our website. Last month, we launched a new scheme offering independent verifications of the actions your institution has taken towards being nature positive. This fantastic new scheme is an opportunity for your institution to show the world you mean business and have taken concrete, real steps, not just talk, towards the future we need to live in harmony with nature. Last week, we hosted a webinar all about this verification scheme, so please do take a look at that webinar. The recording is available on YouTube in English, French and Spanish. So to introduce myself, I'm Henry Grubb, working at the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, and then we're also joined today by Emily Stott, who is the coordinator of Nature Positive Universities at the University of Oxford, and Holly Thompson, who is the project assistant on Nature Positive Universities, also at the University of Oxford. In today's webinar, the agenda is going to be as follows. We have two speakers, Julien-Pierre and Marie-Claude, both at Canadian institutions over in Quebec, and they're going to be speaking about the biodiversity on their campuses. As we go through this webinar, please do put your questions that you have for our speakers in the chat box in Zoom. You can also give a thumbs up reaction to the questions that have been posted. So please have a look and vote for the questions that you want to be answered to. So please put questions in the chat box as we go through the presentations. So now it is time to hand over to Julien-Pierre Lacombe, who is the director of the Sustainable Development Office at ETS Montreal in Quebec, Canada, who is speaking today about the integration of biodiversity on their urban campus. So, Julien-Pierre, I'll hand over to you if we switch over the slides and then you can get started. Thank you very much.
All right. I'll switch to French now. All right, so bon matin tout le monde, très content de vous
Hi
joindre. Je veux
everyone, I'm
d'abord
very happy
remercier
to be here.
toute
Thank you
l'équipe
so much.
de
Thank you to the whole
NPU,
team.
Nature Positive
Thank you to
Universities,
the
un
NPU team.
magnifique mouvement qu'on a
This
joint
is a
dès sa
beautiful
fondation.
movement that we have
On en est
joined
très
from the
fiers, puis
beginning.
on est content
We're
de
very proud of
l'opportunité
it.
de faire
So
aujourd'hui
thank
un
you so much for
webinaire
having the
en
opportunity
français.
today to
Je
organize a
sens
webinar
que
in French.
vous avez une véritable volonté
You
de
have
mettre en
a
valeur les
real will
institutions, les établissements d'enseignement
to
supérieur
highlight the work
francophones. Alors,
of
merci pour ça
universities,
et
the
content de pouvoir
French-speaking
s'adresser à un
universities. So
auditoire
thank you so much
international sur
for
la
giving us
question
this
de la
opportunity
démarche de biodiversité
to talk
urbaine
about
de l'École de
biodiversity
technologie
in urban
supérieure.
campuses.
Alors, rapidement, pour vous mettre en contexte,
Very
l'École de
quickly, to
technologie
give you
supérieure,
some
c'est une
context,
université d'ingénierie et de
this
design
university, the
désormais,
School of Higher
donc
Technology,
qui est
is
située
a
au centre-ville
technology
de
and design
Montréal,
school.
une
It's in the city
université qui
center
a tout
of
juste
Montreal.
50 ans cette année,
This
donc une assez
university is
jeune
celebrating
université,
its
mais qui
50
a pris une
years
place
this
très
year.
importante dans le
It's a very
paysage
young
de la
university,
formation
but it's
des
still now
ingénieurs de demain.
very
Donc, on est
important
la plus grande école
to
d'ingénierie au
train
Québec et la
engineers.
deuxième plus
We are
grande au
the biggest
Canada.
engineering
On a un campus
school
qui a
in
désormais
Quebec and the
14
second
bâtiments et
one
la
in Canada.
présentation
We have
va vous montrer
14
un petit peu
buildings,
comment est-ce qu'on a réussi à intégrer la biodiversité dans ce
and we
campus.
will show
Donc,
you how
voici
we
l'état
managed to
initial
integrate
du campus.
biodiversity
Bien qu'on a 50 ans l'ETS,
this
on est
um,
sur ce
in this
site
campus.
depuis
So we are
1996.
here
Donc,
since
quand on est arrivé, on
1995.
récupérait
When
un
we
ancien
arrived,
site industriel. C'était une
there was
brasserie
this was an
qui
old
s'appelle la
industrial
brasserie
site.
d'Arles.
It was a brewery.
Donc, quand on est arrivé, on peut dire que
So
le
when
site
we arrived
était,
here,
on pouvait le décrire en quatre mots. Il était brun,
it
il était
was
gris,
brown,
il était
it was gray,
minéralisé et il était
it was
contaminé, très
with
contaminé.
concrete,
Donc, à
and it
partir de
was
là, il y
very
avait beaucoup de
polluted.
travail à faire.
So
On
there
peut
was a
dire
lot
que
of
la
work to
place de
do.
la nature avait été bien harnachée par des
It's true that
bâtiments, des routes,
nature
des
was has
occupations
completely
industrielles, des
disappeared.
terrains, tout
It had
ça.
been replaced by
Donc,
buildings, by
quelques
concrete.
années plus
So a
tard,
few years later,
on est rendu à un campus avec 14
we
bâtiments en
have a
opération,
campus
comme je
with
le disais,
14
et
buildings,
d'autres bâtiments à venir. Et
and
ici, vous
many more
voyez bien le
buildings will be
contexte,
built.
où est-ce
And
qu'on est
if you
situé.
see
Donc,
it
on
here
a
on the
vraiment le
picture,
centre-ville de
you can see
Montréal
where
qui est
we are. We're on the
ici,
city
le
center of
Mont-Royal,
Montreal.
qui est
There
la
is
montagne
Montreal,
autour de
which is
laquelle la ville s'est développée
the
au fil du
mountain
temps.
around which the city
L'université McGill,
developed.
qui va parler
There
tout
is
à
the
l'heure, est juste
McGill University
en haut de la rue Peel sur laquelle
from my colleague Marie-Claude.
on est situé ici. Et voilà, vous voyez que c'est un contexte qui
So
est
you can
très
see
urbanisé,
that it's
mais
very
qui a des liaisons
urbanized.
écologiques intéressantes quand même, avec la montagne et
But there is
avec
still
ici ce qui
a
s'appelle le
presence of
canal de la
nature
Chine,
with the
une
mountain,
grande
with the
partie de la
Canal
ville
de
au
la
sud,
Seine, which is
où
a
il y a
river.
beaucoup d'espaces verts et tout ça.
So there are many
Donc,
green
on
spaces
travaille sur
around
notre
this area.
campus, on fait plusieurs actions, mais on travaille aussi
So we're
beaucoup aux
working on the
liaisons
campus,
écologiques
but
avec les
also
partenaires des
with
milieux urbains avoisinants.
ecological corridors with our partners.
Donc, vous voyez, vous avez vu l'état initial du site en
So
96. Là, on
you
se
saw
promène
how
à
it was in
maintenant. Voici ce qu'on a
1996.
réussi à
This is
développer
what we
comme
managed to
campus.
develop.
Le
This
bâtiment
is our
original
campus.
dans lequel on est venu,
So
bon, c'était un
the
bâtiment industriel
original
très
building,
classique
it
qui
was
allait
a very
jusqu'au trottoir. Il y
classic
avait un mini
industrial
trottoir et
building.
ensuite la
It
rue. Il
was
n'y avait
going
aucun
to the
verdissement,
footpath. There was no
évidemment, donc,
greening.
dans ce site-là. Et au fil du temps, bon, on a développé d'autres
And
bâtiments, on a
along
développé
the
des
years,
parcs, de la
we built
végétation
other
au sol, de la
buildings,
végétation au
parks,
toit ainsi de
greening
suite. Donc,
on
je
the
vais vous montrer
roofs,
ça au fil de
on
la
on the
présentation.
ground, and I will show you that
C'est quoi notre
in my
stratégie? Notre
presentation.
stratégie pour la
What's
biodiversité,
our
c'est de
strategy? Our
protéger
strategy is
l'existant,
to protect
restaurer la
what is
biodiversité et
here,
la
to restore
rehausser au fil
biodiversity,
du
and
temps,
enhance
dans le
it
but de créer un milieu de vie qui est riche
to
pour toutes les
create
espèces vivantes.
a rich soil
On
and a
a fait,
living area for all living
dans notre
species.
démarche de développement durable, on a toujours
So,
été attentif aux
in our
grands
approach to
engagements
sustainable
internationaux
development,
qu'on
we
pouvait
have been
prendre. On a
very
signé la
attentive to
déclaration
what we could
d'urgence
actually implement.
climatique
We
en
signed a
2019.
declaration of climate
Quelques années plus
urgency
tard,
in
on signait
2019,
Nature Positive
and then
University Pledge.
the
Donc, à ce
Nature
moment-là,
Positive
en
University
fait, c'est
Pledge a few years
la gang de
later.
l'Université d'Oxford et autres partenaires qui nous ont
So we have
contactés
partners
pour
like the University
nous
of
demander si ça
Oxford
nous
who
intéressait de
contacted
signer
us to
cette
ask us
déclaration.
if we were
Et
interested
non
to
seulement on
sign this
trouvait que c'était une bonne
declaration.
idée, mais on s'est mis à
And we
parler à toutes
we, we
les
thought that it
autres
was a very good
universités
idea.
québécoises
And then we
pour leur
spoke with
suggérer
other
de pouvoir
Quebec
signer en front
universities
commun
to
plusieurs universités
sign it
québécoises
together,
l'engagement
to
NPU,
sign this
chose qu'on a
NPU
faite
pledge.
et on a été finalement 11 universités
And
québécoises qui ont
finally,
signé en même temps
11
en front commun
Quebec
et
universities
on a
signed
dévoilé ça
together
lors de la
this
COP
pledge.
qui est
And
pour la
we
biodiversité qui
showed
se
that
tenait à
during the
Montréal.
COP15 for
Donc,
biodiversity
je tiens à
held in
souligner que le
Montreal.
Québec a pris un rôle de leadership important dans la
So
question de
Quebec has a
l'intégration de
very
la
important
biodiversité
leadership
au
role to
campus
implement
universitaire.
biodiversity
Je crois qu'il y avait
in their
117
university
universités au
campus. I
départ
think that there were
signataires et il y en avait 11
117
qui venaient du
universities
Québec.
who
Donc,
signed this
on
pledge
était
and
bien fiers de
11
ça.
were coming from Quebec.
Maintenant, sur le campus, comment est-ce
So
comment
on
est-ce qu'on y est
campus,
arrivé? Comment est-ce que
how
ça
did
s'est
we manage
matérialisé au
to
fil
do
du
that?
temps? Donc, tout d'abord, il faut
First of
savoir que
all,
sur le campus qu'on a, qui est situé en ville,
on
on a beaucoup
campus,
de
in the city
résidences
center,
étudiantes.
there are
On a à
many
peu près
student accommodation.
1300 étudiants qui habitent dans des appartements sur le site.
1,300 students
Et
are
les
living
premières
in this
actions
accommodation.
de verdissement étaient vraiment dans les cours des
And the
résidences
first
étudiantes.
actions
Donc,
were
on
to
est
have
arrivé à
green
garder des
schoolyards in
arbres
student
matures dans
accommodation.
cette première phase de résidence qu'on a construit. On a fait une conception
So
complète ici de
we
le bâtiment qui est au
managed to
centre
design
en
the
minimisant
building
l'empreinte du bâtiment au sol, en
in a way that
maximisant
it
les
would
espaces verdis. Et ici, ce
maximize the
bâtiment, cette
green
résidence
spaces.
étudiante, la cour intérieure se trouve à être au troisième
And
étage.
here,
Donc, elle n'est pas en plein
the
sol, mais elle est
green
vraiment en
schoolyard is on the
hauteur.
third floor.
Il y a une
It's
épicerie
not
en dessous,
underground. There is
épicerie métro. Donc voilà,
one
c'était nos premiers
supermarket,
pas.
and this
Ensuite, en
was one of the first
2015,
steps. Then in
on a construit
2015,
un magnifique bâtiment tout
we built
vitré, le
a
pavillon E. Et sur ce
magnificent
pavillon,
building.
on a mis un premier toit vert
And in this
qu'on a
building,
voulu,
we
en fait, qu'on
implemented
a
the first
conçu
green roof
de façon à ce qu'il puisse être entretenu de façon biologique à
that
100%
could be
et
maintained
sans
using
aucun système
organic methods
d'irrigation.
and without
Donc, c'est des
any
espèces
irrigation system.
indigènes. En fait, c'est
So
uniquement
these
des espèces
species
indigènes qui
are
sont sur tout
indigenous
ce toit-là.
species,
Et c'est une superficie de presque 700 mètres
and it
carrés.
has
Et
a
c'est un
superficie of
véritable
around
îlot de
700
biodiversité. Les biologistes qui
square
ont fait les
meters.
inventaires chez nous ont dit que c'était impressionnant
And
de voir
the
à quel point
biologist said how
ce toit
impressive
accueille
it
une
was
belle
to see
diversité biologique.
how this green roof was
Un autre moment
very
super
rich in
important, ça a
biodiversity.
été la
Another very important
piétonisation de la rue
thing was the
Murray, qui est vraiment au
pedestrianization
cœur
of
de
the
notre
Murray
campus.
Street,
Donc, on a
which is at the
travaillé
heart
beaucoup
of our
avec la
campus.
ville de Montréal,
So we
fait
worked together
du
with the
lobbying, des
city of Montreal.
représentations auprès de la ville pour
We did some
leur
lobbying
demander de pouvoir
to the elected
piétoniser ce
representatives
tronçon
of
de
the
rue
city so
qui
that
vient
they
joindre
could
plusieurs de nos
pedestrianize
bâtiments et qui est vraiment
the
central pour notre
street,
campus.
which is
Donc,
very important
non
for our
seulement la
campus.
ville a accepté de piétoniser la rue, mais
The
en
city
plus, elles ont, donc tout le
accepted,
côté gauche ici,
but here on
appartient
the
à la
left
ville.
side,
Donc, elles ont créé
see
des
that this
fosses de
belongs to the
végétation très
city, and they
riches
created
avec plusieurs strates de
green
végétaux,
spaces
des
with
arbustes, des
trees
plantes
and with
et du
shrubs,
mobilier
with
urbain
plants,
intégré. C'est une conception qui a été vraiment appréciée et qu'ils ont décidé de répéter dans le
and
quartier
they
après à d'autres
then
endroits.
replicated
Et nous,
that
on est venu de
to
l'autre
other
côté
spaces
construire un
in
grand
the
parc
country.
que vous
And
allez
then we
voir
built a big
dans les
park,
prochaines
and you
slides.
will see that in the next slides.
Donc, voici le parc comme tel.
So
La rue
here you can
piétonnisée se trouve
see
ici.
where
Et le parc
the
qu'on a
rooftop
conçu
park
va du
is.
nord au
You can see
sud
the
et
pedestrianized
ensuite de
area.
l'est à l'ouest.
And
C'est
this
un
goes from
parc qui a été
east to
conçu
west.
par
This
la
is
firme
a
Nip
park
Paysage, vraiment
that
dans un
has
esprit
been
de résilience
developed
climatique. Donc, on a un
with
papier de
climate
couleur
resilience
vert,
in mind.
maximisation
A
des
very
espèces
clear
indigènes.
idea on
Vous avez
having
une
native
stratégie de
species,
gestion des eaux de pluie,
lighting,
etc.
and
Donc,
water management
aussi un
systems,
autre
water
point,
retention
au Bureau du
systems.
développement durable à
And
l'ETS,
in the Sustainable
laquelle je
Development
suis le
Bureau,
directeur, on s'occupe de l'intégration
where
des
I'm a
arts et de la
director, we
culture sur le
also
campus. Et on fait souvent dialoguer
do a
les
lot of
arts
work
et
on
l'environnement. Donc, dans les parcs qu'on a conçus,
ecology
on
in
intègre toujours des
the
œuvres d'art. C'est le cas
campus,
ici avec
and
le
also
magnifique œuvre
pieces of
d'artiste
art. We
Ludovic
like
Renaud.
to highlight pieces
On voit
of
bien si vous
art that
avez une
are
belle
linked
perspective sur le toit
to
vert que je vous montrais avant,
biodiversity, ecology,
avec quelques prises
etc.
ici. Ensuite, on a conçu un deuxième parc
We also
à peu près
designed
à
a
peu près en
second
même temps.
park,
Donc,
more or less at
ici,
the
on
same
appelle
time as the
l'ancien
first one.
planétarium de
So here
Montréal,
you
qui est
can
un
see the former
bâtiment
planetarium
qu'on
of
possède
Montreal,
depuis quelques années. Et devant l'ancien
a building
planétarium, il y
that's
avait
been
un
like this
stationnement
for
sur
some
place. On a
years,
décidé de transformer cet
and
ancien
it was very
stationnement
grey.
en un parc qui s'appelle la Place des Réflexions.
And
Où
we
on a aussi
decided to
intégré
convert this
une
into a
magnifique œuvre
park, and we
d'art de
called this the
l'artiste
place
Linda
of
Covid. Et dans
reflections,
ce
or the
parc,
square of
on est arrivé à
reflections.
garder tous les arbres
And
matures qui étaient en
we
pourtour
were
du parc quand on
able
a fait
to
la
keep
conception et la construction du parc. Et
the
puis, on
trees that
a
were already there
3 aires
and
de
build a park around it.
biorétention
And we also focused on bioretention projects and once again having honey plants and native plants in this park. So once again, we used the same strategies and had the same ideas in mind. We also used rainwater and we send these down in a bioretention water basin to then for irrigation, for plant irrigation. And as requested by NPU, we also have inventories. We have 8 at the moment, 8 biodiversity inventories on campus, and they are on flowers, on animals like bats as well. Lots of different inventories. Because we're in a very urban area, so every little action that we do is something that contributes towards positive biodiversity, and it really makes a difference. It makes a difference for biodiversity on campus and in the surrounding areas as well. We also have planted trees, always favoring native species once again. We planted 64 trees in 2021. This might not seem like an impressive figure compared to other plantations, but for us, in our campus, with the small amount of plot of land that we have, this is quite considerable. And once again, it favors biodiversity and contributes to a healthier lifestyle and well-being. Then 2 years later, we also focused on planting 12 trees and also some bushes, 86 bushes. We've also been working with the organization called Polyflora, and they focus on biodiversity projects, in particular working on native pollinators and having honey plants. So we currently have 5 zones, 5 biodiversity zones, thanks to Polyflora. So this was very barren before. It was very grey, and people would go from east to west and cross this area, which was very barren. And then we, thanks to Polyflora, worked on having these, planting these bushes, as you can see in the second picture, and then that brought over the native pollinators. We've been working on lots of planting throughout the campus. And as I spoke to earlier, we have 4 bioretention zones. These are pictures from opposite the former planetarium. Then we also work on urban agriculture. We work in close collaboration with Montreal City Council, in particular the Southwest District, to be a founding partner on a development plan for a nourishment community, a feeding community, if you like. And we contribute with our professors who are experts in urban agriculture in different fields. That's what we bring to the table, and also our concrete experience on campus, thanks to all the projects that we've had. And among other things, we also have this wonderful rooftop farm with, once again, the honey plants. This is 25 meters high. We also have a bioretention area here on the side of the road. So you can see that this is once again in an urban area. This is something that is ongoing. It's going to be finalized soon. And something that was interesting is that our students are the ones who manage this and who look after this. They, of course, work with professional farmers, but they have a weekly follow-up with them to make sure to maximize production and also to learn about agriculture in different forms. So that we'll be in our second year of this this project. You can see here that some plants grow very quickly. There's quite a lot of depth you can see in the first picture as well, and you can see the whole urban backdrop with all the skyscrapers of Montreal. So once again, we're giving back to the students, giving back to the campus, and all of this is freely accessible. And there's also a coffee shop which is given to where the students can also gather and work. So once again, contributing to student life. Then we have another initiative, which is a sort of fake demineralization. So bringing vegetation, bringing green spaces without having to demineralize areas. So by having these container pots. And it's quite nice when you go from one area of the campus to another. You can see all of these green, all of this greenery in these red tubs. So we try to once again have native pollinators and honey plants. As I mentioned earlier, we really like to value art. So this is not very linked to biodiversity. However, we have some professors who have a lab, a research lab, a controlled environment, and it's in this container that you see in this picture. And they're doing research on plant optimization, plant growth, and things like that. And we asked professional artists to paint what is happening inside the container. So this artist is Boris with 3 R's if you want to follow him on Instagram or on social media channels. Then we also worked on a poster project to raise awareness on different native species, the rooftop farms, the green roofs, the honey plants. And we've had 17 on campus. We thought that it would be better to have fewer and then to just cover the campus in these posters. So we really worked on having good communication that can work well, that can fit well aesthetically, that can look good on campus, but as well at the same time raise awareness on the work that we're doing.
Ensuite, toujours dans le volet de
faire dialoguer les arts et l'environnement. Whilst we're on the topic of art and the environment, we also have a photo competition at ETS. And there are different categories for this photography competition. So we have a biodiversity one, and we get such great photos sent to us as part of this competition. And we have a permanent exhibition space where we can showcase the winners.
Donc, on prend les lauréats du concours photo et on les expose dans la zone d'exposition.
That's something that we do in our permanent exhibition space. And once again, it contributes to raising awareness of biodiversity matters. Then here you can see our neighbors. We worked with École. They work on ecological connectivity. And we also interviewed 15 organizations to see how we can work together for better biodiversity.
Un des scénarios qui est ici présent, ça c'est le rapport de la firme Ecopivot comme tel qui nous avait remis. On a décidé de travailler sur tous les scénarios.
We decided to work on all the scenarios instead of just choosing one. That way we can have lots of collaboration and look for different funding opportunities as well. Another project that contributes to this ecological connectivity, we worked with a big company in Quebec. They do posters and billboards. And also, so it's called Québécois, and then we also work together with Toi Vertige. And 20 years ago, Toi Vertige was a startup, and they've become really important in creating rooftop farms and green roofs. So we work together with them and Québécois, the billboard company, and also with the Transport Agency of Montreal to add rooftop farms on bus stops. It's something very small. It's a small space, but there are very interesting advantages to this, interesting consequences. Water capture, for example, among others. And our professors at ETS actually worked together on that so that we can have specific data on the impact of these green roofs on bus stops. So you can see the temperature changes on, this is on any given day, you can see the temperature in the top left-hand corner. And then you see that there's 2.9 degrees less in the case of a green roof and 1.4 degrees less inside the bus stop. So this is something that makes people more comfortable when they're at the bus stop because there are people who might be more sensitive to heat for a whole number of reasons. And so we're trying to have these green rooftops on bus stops as much as possible. Okay, so what's in the pipeline? So I'm in Pavilion A, and behind me we have Pavilion B. And there is this whole space, this sort of square that you can see. It's very gray, and this is something that we see quite a lot. And so what we want to do is to demineralize this place. We really want to work on making this a green space, which will again help with biodiversity, water retention, etc. So I think I'll stop there and pass the floor to you, Henry.
Thank you so much, Julien-Pierre, and I understood very well the presentation. So I'm very thank you to our interpreters. We were not sure how it was going to go, but it's gone pretty well. So thank you so much for your presentation. We have some questions in the chat, but maybe we have time for perhaps a couple. I'll read the questions out in English, and then if you answer in French, Julien-Pierre. So one of the questions from Liam is about the pedestrianizing the city streets and greening those as well. So he has been interested in doing that, but it seems from his perspective there is a lot of risk and costs associated with maintaining the surfaces and the sub-infrastructure to do with the green spaces and the pedestrian spaces. So did you have any challenges in enacting those changes on your campus? And were there costs involved as well for you, or was it easier to do, or were there challenges, and how was it for you?
OK. Thanks for the question. En fait, le challenge
Thank you
principal,
very much for this question. The
c'était
main
de
challenge was the
convaincre la
following.
ville
It
de
was to
piétoniser la
convince
rue.
the
Parce
city
que la
to
rue appartient à la ville. C'est pas un
pedestrianize the
terrain
city,
privé qui nous appartient.
the street,
Donc,
because
du
this
moment
belongs
que,
to
évidemment,
the
la ville a
city.
toujours
It
été
doesn't belong to
ouverte
us.
à
But the
faire
city
cette
was always
action-là,
open to
il n'a pas
implement
fallu
this.
leur tordre le bras.
We didn't really
Ça
have
s'est
to
fait dans
convince
un
them for a
esprit
very
de
long time. No,
collaboration.
it
La
was a
ville voyait
real
les bénéfices de
collaboration.
faire ça.
The city could see all
Maintenant,
the
puisque ça
benefits
appartient à
of
la
this
ville, ben, c'est
action.
eux qui entretiennent
But of
la
course,
rue. C'est eux
this
qui
belongs to the
entretiennent les
city,
fosses
so they
de
are the one
végétation
maintaining
que j'ai montré tout
the
à l'heure, tout
streets,
ça.
the
Donc, c'est pas
the
nous.
green spaces.
Maintenant, on a fait un aménagement juste à côté
So we
qui est adjacent.
planned
Donc, je vous le
some
remontre
and we
rapidement.
planted some vegetation next to it. I will come back to that right now.
Donc voilà, toute la partie. Donc la partie ici,
This
c'est la
is
ville
what
qui
we have done.
entretient la
So
rue, c'est la
here,
ville qui entretient
the
les fosses de
city is
végétation.
maintaining
Et le reste
the
ici, c'est nous qui
city,
l'entretenons.
the
Donc ça,
green
c'est vraiment
spaces,
notre
and the
terrain
rest
privé qui
is
commence à
from
peu près à
our
partir
side,
de la
our
fin du
maintenance.
pavé. Donc ça,
So
c'est notre terrain privé,
this
c'est
is
nous
a
qui
private
l'entretenons.
ground, so we
Donc
are
voilà,
doing
il
that
n'y avait pas
ourselves, but
tant
otherwise
d'enjeux
it's
à
the
ce
city.
niveau-là.
So there were not
Par
that
contre, ça
many
permet
issues
peut-être de
on
dire
this
que
topic.
des
But
aménagements pour la
maybe I could
biodiversité,
add
souvent on y
the fact
pense
that
au moment de la conception, on les
planting
construit, ils
for
sont super beaux, puis
biodiversity,
tout ça,
we
mais
think about
ensuite,
it when
l'entretien,
we want to
c'est
build it,
vraiment
but
le
then
nerf de la guerre.
it's
C'est
very, it
quelque
looks
chose
very
d'extrêmement
nice,
important
yes,
que
but
souvent
then
on va
maintaining it
peut-être
is
un peu
also very
négliger.
important. And
Donc,
sometimes it's quite
il faut
neglected.
planifier
So
l'entretien,
you
les
really
coûts
have to
afférents à
plan the
l'entretien,
cost
des
of maintenance,
spécialistes qui
to
vont faire l'entretien et tout
have
ça,
specialists
si
coming
on
to
veut
maintain
maximiser les
the
bénéfices.
place if you want to
Donc
maximize
voilà.
all the profits.
Thank you, Julien-Pierre. And it's good to hear that the city council was receptive to these ideas because I know it can make these ideas move very quickly or it can really delay them. So it's good to hear in this case the city was receptive. I will take one more question that we've had in the chat from Keijo was about the artificial the roofs, the green roofs that you showed in the presentation, because there is a lot of space dedicated to green roofs, which looks fantastic. The question is about how you maintain that roof and whether you can maintain that without the use of any artificial chemicals, but also how that was planned in terms of the integrity of the building, because I know there are lots of buildings where green roofs are not appropriate. So what sort of challenges did you have there and how are those roofs maintained?
Yeah, great question. First off, no, I'll switch back to French.
I'm going to speak in
This
French.
one that we see here for this
So the one that you see here,
it was a new building, right? So
it was a new building actually.
On l'a fait dans la conception du bâtiment.
So
Dès le
we have
début,
thought
dans la
about that
conception du bâtiment, donc
from
c'était intégré.
the designing of
Et on a
the
la
building.
chance, comme on est une école d'ingénierie,
And we are very
on a
lucky.
plusieurs
We are
spécialistes
an
en génie de la
engineering school,
construction,
the School
en
of High
bâtiment,
Technology. We
bâtiment
have
durable,
a
tout
lot of
ça.
people
On a
who are
un
studying this, who are
propriétaire qui est
studying
impliqué,
sustainable
qui est
buildings.
intéressé dans la conception
The
avec les
owner of the
professionnels
building
qu'on embauche
is
pour
very
concevoir les
committed
bâtiments.
and is very
Donc,
interested
c'est très
in
bien réfléchi et c'est bien
implementing
intégré.
biodiversity-friendly
Ça
solutions.
n'empêche pas d'avoir des enjeux. C'est
Of
possible
course, we're
d'avoir
all
des
facing
enjeux une fois
issues
que les toits sont construits, tout ça.
once
Et
the
quoi
roofs
qu'il
are
en
being
soit, c'est
built.
l'importance de la conception
But this is
et la plus grande
the importance of
facilité
design,
de le faire sur un
of
bâtiment qui est
designing it
nouveau versus un
on a
bâtiment
new
existant,
building
évidemment. C'est le cas aussi pour
rather than
le
doing it on an
toit vert
existing building.
maraîcher
This
sur
is
le pavillon F, qui lui
the
aussi
same for
était un nouveau
this
bâtiment.
roof
Donc, c'était
on
dès la
building F,
conception.
the
Évidemment,
farming roof,
c'est un
let's say.
choix
It
qu'on
was
a
a new
fait.
building.
Il y a
Of
des coûts qui
course,
sont importants pour
this
construire
is
des
our
toits
own
comme ça,
choice. Of
surtout avec
course,
une bonne
the
profondeur de terre.
costs
Nous, on a
are quite
16 pouces.
important,
Donc,
especially since we have a lot of
faut
soil
avoir la
there.
volonté et il faut savoir
16
convaincre un peu aussi à l'interne des bénéfices de ça.
centimeters, or even
Donc
more,
voilà.
in the
J'espère que ça
Canadian
répond à la question.
way of measuring. Yeah, I don't know if this answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much, Julien-Pierre. Well, thank you for the questions. We need to move on to the next speakers, but please do continue to put more questions into the chat box as our next speaker goes through their presentation. And we might be able to come back to some of the questions we didn't manage to answer in the meantime. So our next speaker is Marie-Claude Carignan, who is the biodiversity officer at McGill University in Montreal, who is speaking today about the ecological management of McGill's campuses. So, Marie-Claude, when you're ready, you can begin, and looks like we can see your slides. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. So, take it away. Yep, we can hear you great.
I'm going to close the window here. Donc, merci beaucoup là, de nous recevoir, Julien-Pierre et moi.
Thank you so much for allowing us to speak here. I'm Marie-Claude Carignan. I work at University McGill in Montreal. Like my colleagues' university, I'd like to thank you. Thank you to the NPU Alliance to have organized this meeting with other languages than just English. Thank you so much for having organized this, and I'm very grateful for having such a diverse audience. So I'm going to talk about the ecological management of our campus, but also about other aspects of our biodiversity actions. I'm just going to give you some background, some context. So McGill is in Montreal, in a province that is at the east of Canada. We have around 40,000 students and more than 1,000 teachers and researchers. So this is quite a big university. We have around 11 faculties and 14 schools. What concerns our campus? So we have 3 main campuses with 200 buildings. Many buildings are part of the cultural inheritance of the Montreal city. So the campus here in the middle of my screen is in the middle of the city, and then we have a McDonald campus, which is the farming campus, which is in a rural area, and here is a natural reserve of around 1,000 hectares outside of the city of Montreal. A lot of research is being carried out in this forest reserve. On the main campuses, on the McDonald campus and the campus in the city center, there are over 30 hectares of green spaces managed by maintenance teams. There are also 2 other forest reserves located closer to the McDonald campus. Another interesting thing to mention is to understand the climate. Montreal is a city with a continental, humid area. So there are around 30-degree temperature difference over the year. So that's very important when we talk about our actions, what we can implement, what actions we can implement. The McGill University has 5 main goals in what concerns their long-term commitments to sustainable development. So we are aiming to be carbon neutral by 2040, to reinforce climate resilience. The most important objective here is to become a university, a nature-positive university, to become a zero-waste university by 2035, and to maintain the platinum standard in sustainable development. This is also taking into account other elements apart from the 4 main objectives that I just mentioned. First of all, I'm going to talk to you about the history of sustainable development in McGill. So the office for which I'm working on, which is the Sustainable Development Office that has been founded in 2009. They have in 2014, 2017 with publication of action plans, and between 2020 and 2025 are the launch of many initiatives. In what concerns biodiversity, we had already worked and started to work to develop a new strategy for biodiversity. And what gave a lot of momentum to this project is the ratification of the Nature Positive Pledge with the 9 other Quebec universities who have signed together this document in the COP15 in Montreal in 2022. And then in 2023, McGill has launched this Biodiversity Plan 2030. It is the first strategic framework entirely dedicated to biodiversity.
Puis depuis ce temps-là, on a vraiment réussi,
on a vraiment pu,
comme on dit, peser sur le gaz là, sur notre travail en biodiversité.
We could really start a work on biodiversity. So we worked in depth.
De la ligne de base ou vraiment du baseline. En lien avec
we managed to
donc on a engagé quelqu'un en 2024 qui travaillait avec le
work on our baseline.
En sciences de la biodiversité qui est basé à l'Université
McGill. So we have also worked with the Center for Biodiversity based in McGill. So we had somebody who helped us to work on the baseline.
On a réussi à lancer un atlas de biodiversité.
We also managed to launch the Biodiversity Atlas.
Dans notre travail
and
sur
this year,
l'espace vert que je vais parler plus tard.
We have implemented our biodiversity plot slides.
Du plan de biodiversité,
now, about the Biodiversity Plan 2030.
Notre vision globale est en fait de
Our vision
de protéger et d'améliorer
is
la
to
biodiversité
monitor, protect, and
par le
enhance
biais de ses
biodiversity
recherches, de son
through its
enseignement et de
research,
ses opérations,
teaching, and operations,
tout en
while
impliquant
raising
les membres de sa
awareness
communauté, que ce soit
and
sur le
engaging
campus
members of its
ou à
community,
l'extérieur du
both
campus ou dans
on
la
and off
communauté
campus.
montréalaise. Donc ça, en fait, c'est notre ligne directrice là, dans notre
This
plan. Et le plan,
are our
guidelines.
And we have 6 main goals.
Je ne vais pas les lire.
I'm not going to read them out.
Vous pouvez les regarder rapidement, là, mais on parle
You can look at
beaucoup,
them quite quickly.
disons, les points les plus importants, c'est la question de faire et de maintenir un inventaire. Puis
What
d'analyser
is
les impacts
very
de la
important
biodiversité.
is to establish and maintain a biodiversity inventory,
Et d'engagement de la communauté
to assess and
dans les
report
activités de recherche
impacts on
pédagogique en
biodiversity,
biodiversité.
but also
Et
to
les
increase engagement in biodiversity-focused teaching, learning, and research activities. And the most interesting goals, well, because it's green spaces, or goals number 4 and 5,
qui vise à intégrer au fonctionnement de l'université les meilleures
to
pratiques
integrate
en matière de
biodiversity best practices into
et
university
aussi
operations,
d'augmenter la qualité et
and
le
to
nombre
enhance
d'espaces
both the
verts,
quality and quantity of
pour le
green
nombre et la qualité
spaces
d'espaces
across our
verts sur nos
campuses.
campus. Donc, depuis 2023, depuis le lancement du plan, rapidement,
Since the launch of the plan in 2023,
dans le fond, jusqu'au début 2026, on a
from
tenu
then
beaucoup
until now,
de mobilisation avec notre communauté. Donc,
we have managed to mobilize our community with the Festival of Biodiversity that is organized in autumn
environ comme une dizaine de marches nature avec des partenaires
to organize
ou
10
externes, donc avec des
nature
groupes
walks
communautaires. On
with
tient à peu près
community
une quinzaine
groups,
de kiosques d'information là, pour,
with 15 stalls with a lot of information
à Montréal ou du Québec, ou bien
about
des
the communities
étudiants à
involved,
McGill ou des,
with
des,
student groups in
des
McGill,
organismes qui œuvrent en biodiversité.
organisms working for biodiversity.
Naturelle de McGill.
There's also free visits of the museum in McGill.
Nos étudiants gradués qui font de la recherche en biodiversité.
But we're also working closely with our students who are doing research in biodiversity. We also have photo exhibition.
Pour la communauté de McGill, qui part des 2 campus principaux. Et on tient des bioblitz également. Là,
and we also organize bioblitz,
entre autres,
which are organized
du Campus Nature Challenge,
in the framework of the Campus Nature Challenge,
le réseau Biodiversité Campus,
organized by the network of biodiversity campuses.
On a réalisé, en fait, c'est ça, le rapport de l'état des lieux de la biodiversité à McGill. Donc,
Then we had the Biodiversity Festival.
Des connaissances de la biodiversité à McGill, donc de la recherche qui est effectuée. On a fait beaucoup d'analyses des données secondaires.
We do a lot of analysis of secondary data that has already been accumulated and also direct data that has been gathered with different groups within McGill in lots of different spheres, whether this is pollinators, plants, etc. And also we've done an inventory.
Pu donner en fait l'Atlas de biodiversité de McGill qui a été lancé l'an dernier en partenariat avec notre
and last year in partnership with our SCJ and with the students as well, we've been able to maintain this and upkeep it. In 2025, we developed our strategy for sustainable development for the climate. And therein you find all the information on our work with green spaces, and our aim was to manage 30% of green spaces in McGill to boost biodiversity from here to 2030. And so that was our main goal. And we saw that there was a lot of potential for work here and for impact on our campus. So here it's all about best practices in operation and having good quality green spaces on green spaces. And we decided to exclude forest spaces and research spaces in our definition of green spaces. So it's just green spaces that are maintained within the campus. So, for example, lawns and different ways, creative ways of using green spaces. So here you can see the mountain in the background that we also saw in the previous presentation that Julien-Pierre showed us. So we saw that 95% of green spaces on the campus in town and on the campus, McDonald campus, were managed through traditional methods. So mowing the lawn every week, etc. And
mais tout est, en fait, tout est biologique. Donc, c'est ça. Puis, dans le fond, ce qu'on a réalisé, c'est que
we decided
la
that
gestion, en fait,
in actual fact, these traditional management systems were perhaps appropriate in areas that were heavily frequented by people, but in green spaces that were less frequented, less used, less visible, we needed to have a more adapted method. And we call this differentiated management.
Adapter l'aménagement et l'entretien des espaces basés sur ces caractéristiques propres. Donc, de
basically, this is adapting management of green spaces based on what's there, based on the species, based on the campus, among other things. So we find the variable, and then we create this differentiated management.
Dans le fond, qui sont ignorés d'un point de vue d'usage, et également leur potentiel d'amélioration.
So we look at the ecological potential of green spaces and how we can better use them, better manage them, and we do this with different partners. For example, our design faculty. We also look at having partnerships with the municipality, with the city council, etc. We also worked with the development and planning of campus division as well.
And qui est vraiment un de nos partenaires les plus importants. Aussi pour, vu que ça va être eux qui vont mettre le projet en œuvre.
And the people who work on the land to make sure that the projects that we suggest are actually realistic, that we can achieve our goal, and so that we work with those who will be who will materialize the change. And so what we've done is we've created this whole mosaic of green spaces on campus. And the aim is to really make visible and accessible all of these green spaces and to work on the intensity of the usage of these spaces, so how often people use these spaces and the potential for improvement. So, once again, we have this differentiated management of the zones depending on whether it's an area that people go to a lot or not, because we can't have one blanket response for all green spaces. Once again, these are student-led initiatives.
d'aménagement biodiversité. Donc, c'est aussi quelque chose que
they wanted to work on this land management.
Dans notre projet. Donc, on va passer en fait de 95% de gestion conventionnelle à environ 70%.
We're going from 70% of areas that are traditionally managed to 30%, where we're having what we call low mow, which is our low intensity one, meaning we're not mowing the lawn every single week unnecessarily, and also improving restoration and improving the areas and other zones as well, so developing more projects. There are many benefits to having this differentiated management of green spaces. We can have good practices that boost local biodiversity.
Pour fournir comme plus de nourriture et d'habitat adapté à la faune locale. Si on s'éloigne de la biodiversité, les gros avantages sont le fait qu'éventuellement, l'objectif, c'est de retravailler l'allocation des ressources d'entretien.
The aim is also to work on resource allocation so that we can optimize the resource that we have, the time that we have, and
évidemment, à long terme aussi, on regarde au bénéfice que ça va
to make sure that there's diversity, diverse vegetation,
et dans le fond, le couvert
that can really be nourishing.
Et également le contribuer à la résilience climatique.
And good for local fauna, and also working on resilience.
Je vais parler un peu puis montrer certaines photos aussi des différentes zones. On a commencé
so here you can see different lawns. These are photos that were just taken last week, actually.
Mais l'idée, c'est vraiment que la faune va être réduite ou
éliminée selon les objectifs
du site. Donc tout ça, ça va être flexible selon les besoins. Et en fait,
is to only mow the lawn when there is a need, and we also want to boost growth as well.
Dans ces cas-là, ça reste sous l'emprise des équipes d'entretien paysager.
So once again, this is managed by the landscape management teams.
Des espèces végétales exotiques envahissantes. Donc,
and we want to protect different species.
On réduit l'intensité
and so the idea is to not be cutting the grass or mowing the lawn every single week unnecessarily.
Les risques de plainte par rapport à la on peut voir vraiment que les espaces
and also we want to reduce the complaints
maintenus dans certains cas, puis vu que c'est des fois comme la culture ou les attentes suivent pas le rythme là, dans le fond de nos travaux,
we want to follow the whole
campagne de sensibilisation au
projet. The rhythm of biodiversity, and we've decided to, in order to reduce any complaints on, why this why the grass hasn't been cut, we've put different posters up to explain this is a conservation project, this is a restoration project for this specific plant or this specific species. This is not a neglected plot of land. Then we have this active improvement project, where we have tree planting activities. And this is something that we're doing to boost native pollinators as well. We already heard this in the previous presentation. We also work on this, and we want to create these spaces by having, for example, microforests or meadows with flowers and different biodiversity gardens, as we call them, and ecological managed spaces.
Puis aussi des designs qui sont à faible
once again, this is to boost native flora. This is managed by the students. And here you can see the green spaces on our campus. So we're talking about 95,000 square meters. And we want to develop this, and this is the change that we want for 2030. So you can see where we are now in 2026. Of course, this requires a lot of funding.
Puis après, ça aide beaucoup
So hopefully by 2030 we should have this, we should see this difference
Ensuite,
here.
pour ce qui est du campus McDonald, où est-ce qu'on
This
a
is for
vraiment un
the
campus qui est beaucoup plus
McDonald
grand.
campus. This is the
Dans ce cas-ci,
2025
on peut voir
image.
dans le fond, la ligne de base ici. Et cette année, les zones
This
qu'on a
is
mis
where
en
we are
vert.
now.
Et d'ici 2030, on regarde.
And then for 2030, this is where
on
we aim to be.
On peut voir là, que ça va être c'est assez ambitieux.
So you can see that it's quite an ambitious program, but we're very keen on having more green spaces and working together with our partners so that we can have a better management of the green spaces on campus.
Beaucoup de partenaires dans le fond, qui prennent le projet, dans le fond, qui le prennent pour que ça leur tient à cœur. Là, donc, on a confiance qu'on est capable d'atteindre notre objectif.
We're confident that we can reach our goals because we work together with partners for whom this is very important.
Je vais passer rapidement parce qu'on l'a
So for the next steps,
j'ai mentionné à quelques reprises, mais si on
and I know I've already mentioned this, but we're doing a lot of awareness-raising campaigns, especially on social media. We've put QR codes on the bottom of our posters around. We've got an Instagram page. We also have different activities, mobilization activities as well. You can see it on BioBlitz and promoting the methods that we use as well. Then we're also working on training sessions for the management of these spaces and maintenance program, which is offered thanks to our local partners. Also maintaining and monitoring these zones with subcontractors and the maintenance teams, and also having an adapted approach for the years to come and carrying on this collaboration with our partners. I know that we're running out of time and that there'll be questions, so perhaps I'll take them now. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Marie-Claude, thank you so much for your presentation and to see the beautiful photographs of McGill's campus. It's looking really, really beautiful, and it looks like there's lots of biodiversity there as well. One of the questions we had in was about the management of the space when you're using this differential management. The team that I'm not exactly sure who manages the campus in terms of, if you have, presumably you have like an estates team who is physically doing the management. And when you changed to differential management from what management regimes were in the past, did you find that the teams weren't very receptive to this or didn't want to change? Or did you find it easy to do because they were very happy to make those changes? How was it trying to change the management regime? And did you how did people react to being asked to do something different?
C'est une très bonne question et c'est d'ailleurs mon point 4 là, dans les
That's such a good question, and it's my point 4. Accepting change among the maintenance teams.
C'est quelque chose qui est très important à considérer parce que
it's very important to consider this. We knew
comme les nouvelles pratiques qu'on proposait aux équipes
when you propose something new, that there could be a backlash. We don't know if they're going to accept this positively. So how did we make sure that it was positive? Well, we had these pilot projects and pilot zones. You can see it on the map here.
On a eu un bon push au début sur les zones en rouge.
Here we are. So we had pilot zones.
Dans le fond, l'étendue des zones qu'on vise en en 2030. Donc, c'est vraiment
then we expanded these pilot zones. So for us, this was a way to showcase our will, first and foremost, but also what this change will look like. And then it allowed us to also have this dialogue with different teams and with the maintenance team and to hear things from their perspective as well. And for them to be able to talk to, whoever they were concerned with, their employment, the colleagues, etc. So communication, dialogue, showcasing, and also talking about the aim and the solutions, bringing solutions to any problems. For example, if there were accessibility issues or things like that. We managed to get a huge funding pot. And within this budget, we managed to have a specialized fund for the teams to be able to respond to the needs of these teams. And we wanted to make sure that the transition could be as smooth as possible, and so that they were comfortable with the new practices.
Thank you so much, Marie-Claude. I'm afraid we have run out of time, so we are going to have to stop the webinar there. If we could switch over the screens, and then Holly will share her screen in a moment. So thank you so much to everybody for attending today's webinar. And of course, thank you to our wonderful speakers, and also to our eco-interpreters, Renzo, Farah, Camille and Marta, for providing today's English, French and Spanish live translations. Please do have a look at our new verification service and take a look at our website for information, including guidance about each stage of the pledge, past webinars, information about how to submit case studies to be featured on our website, and newsletter items. We're always looking for new case studies and indeed people who can present in future webinars. So it could be you presenting a future webinar in French or Spanish, or maybe even a different language, of course, or English. So please do submit information to us in that way. And on this last slide, we also have a link to our feedback survey where you can share your thoughts about today's webinar. And that link will also be distributed by email as well. Please make sure you are signed up to our mailing list. There is a QR code here if you are not. And also please check out our catalogue of past webinars that are available on our YouTube channel, including last week's webinar about verification. Please also remember to tag us when you post about your actions for nature, and follow us on our Instagram and LinkedIn pages. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. I'm afraid that is the end now, but hopefully we will see you all very soon. Thank you very much.